Thidwick, the big-hearted moose. And then there's a picture of him. Okay. Up at Lake Winnebago, the far northern shore, lives a huge herd of moose, about 60 or more. And they all go around in a big happy bunch, looking for nice tender moose moss to munch. And there they are. Up at Lake Winnebago one day, they were lunching, just strolling along and enjoying their munching, for the moose moss that day was especially fine. When it happened that Thidwick, the last moose in line, saw a bingle bug sitting. The bug called out, "Hey, it's such a long road, and it's such a hot day. Would you mind if I rode on your horns for a way?" "Of course not," smiled Thidwick, the big-hearted moose. "I'm happy my antlers can be of some use. There's room there to spare, and I'm happy to share it. Be my guest, and I hope that you're comfortable there." So the bingle bug picked up a nice easy seat, and the moose went on looking for moose moss to eat. And there's the bug, and then them riding together. Well, an hour or so later, the bug heard a squeak, and he heard the small voice of a tree spider speak. "I say," said the spider, "you've got a fine place. The moose seems quite friendly. He has such a nice face. If I got on too, do you think he would mind?" "Hop aboard," laughed the bug, "and I think that you'll find that the moose won't want objects. He's the big-hearted kind," said the spider with joy and delight, and he started a web on the horn to the right. And there the spider is making his web. While the spider was spinning, he heard a gay song, and fresh little Zinazun bird came along. He stopped and he started and he chirped, "Well, well, well, what a smart place to build, what a great place to dwell. I've been living on trees ever since I was born, but here's something new. Why not live on a horn? If there's room there for two, then there's room there for three. There's plenty of room left, the bug, and it's free." Thidwick stopped walking. What was all that talking? These guests have caught Thidwick, the moose, unawares. "Hey!" he called out. What goes on there upstairs?" And there's the bird, the ant or the bug, and the spider, and Thidwick. "Just building a nest, sir," the Zinazoo said, and began yanking hairs out of poor Thidwick's head, and he plucked out exactly 204. "Don't worry," he laughed, "you can always grow more." Then he dozed off to sleep in his fine moose hair nest. "This bird," mumbled Thidwick, "is sort of a pest, but I'm a good sport, so I'll just let him rest, for a host above all must be nice to his guest." And then there's all the animals on Thidwick's horns. Besides, now it's getting quite late in the day, and surely tomorrow they'll all go away. But at last, the next morning, the sun's early light brought to Thidwick's sad eyes a most unwelcoming sight. "Meet my wife," said the bird. "I was married last night, and perhaps, by the way, I should mention to you that her uncle is coming to live with us too. You're a very fine host, so I knew you'd be willing." The bird's wife and Thidwick, surprised. Then the uncle, a woodpecker, started in drilling. "Aw," Thidwick's friend shouted, "get rid of those pests." "I would, but I can't," sobbed poor Thidwick. "They're guests." "Guests indeed," his friends answered, and all of them frowned. "If those are your guests, we don't want you around. You can stay with us 'cause you're just not our sort. You can't stay with us 'cause you're just not our sort." And they all turned their backs and walked off with a snort. Thidwick's friends, all surprised, and the woodpecker. Now the big friendless moose walked alone and forlorn, with 4 great big woodpecker holes in his horn. "What holes?" whispered Herman, a squirrel who spied him. What holes to hide nuts in? Mind if I try them? Try them? They're yours, called the woodpecker. Get right inside them. This big-hearted moose runs a public hotel. Bring your nuts, bring your wife, bring your children as well. So the whole squirrel family all jumped on pell-mell. And then the whole family on poor Thidwick. And the very next thing the poor animal knew, a bobcat and turtle were living on there too. Now what was the big-hearted moose going to do? Well, what would you do if it happened to you? You couldn't say scat, 'cause that wouldn't be right. You couldn't shout scram, 'cause that isn't polite. A host has to put up with all kinds of pests, for a host above all must be nice to his guests. So you try hard to smile, and you try to look sweet, and you'd go right on looking for moose moss to eat. And there he is, thinking. But now it was winter, and that wasn't easy, for moose moss gets scarce when the weather gets freezy. The food was soon gone on the cold northern shore of Lake Winnebago. There just was no more. And all that Thidwick's friends swam away in a bunch to the south of the lake where there's moose moss too much. He watched the herd leaving, and then Thidwick knew he'd starve if he'd stay here. He'd have to go too. And then there's Thidwick and all his friends. He stepped in the water, then, ooh, what a fuss. Stop, screamed Gus. You can't do this to us. These horns are our home, and you have no right to take our home to the far distant side of the lake. Be fair, Thidwick begged with a lump in his throat. We're fair, said the bug. We'll decide this by vote. All those in favor of going say A. All those in favor of staying say nay. A, shouted Thidwick, but when he was done. Nay, they all yelled. He lost 11-1. We win, screamed the guests by a very large score, and poor starving Thidwick climbed back to the shore. Then do you know what those pests did? They asked, and some more. And then those are all the animals. Poor Thidwick. They asked in a fox who jumped in from trees. They asked in some mice, and they asked in some fleas. They asked a big bear, and then, if you please, came a swarm of 362 bees. Poor Thidwick sank down with the ground to his knees, and then came something that made his heart freeze. All the animals on poor Thidwick. Bullets came zinging right past Thidwick's face. Guns were banging all over the place. Get the moose! Get the moose! Thidwick heard a voice call. Fire again and again, and shoot straight, one and all. We must get his head for the Harvard Club wall. And all those guys trying to get Thidwick. Thidwick took to his heels with the load on his head. With 500 pounds on his horn, the moose fled. He could have run faster without all those pests, but a host above all must be nice to his guests. Up canyon, off cliff, over wildy rocky trail, with the bullets bouncing around him like hail. Up gully, through gulch, and down slippery sluice. With his hard-hearted guests raced the soft-hearted moose. And then everyone screamed. Then finally they had him. Because of those pits, he had run out of luck. Because of those guests on his horns, he was stuck. He gasped, he felt faint, and the whole world grew fuzzy. Thidwick was finished completely. Or was he? Then there's Thidwick, all the animals. Finished, not Thidwick decidedly not. It's true he was in most terrible spot, but now he remembered a thing he'd forgot. A wonderful something that happens each year to all the horns of the moose and all the horns of the deer. Today was the day Thidwick happened to know. And there's Thidwick. The old borns come off so that new ones can grow. And he called to his pest on his horns as he threw them. You wanted my horns? Now you're quite welcome to 'em. Keep 'em, they're yours. As for me, I shall take myself to the far distant side of the lake. Then all the animals falling off his horns. And he swam Winnebago and found his old bunch and arrived just in time for a wonderful lunch at the south of the lake where there's moose moss to munch. And then there's Thidwick and all his little buddies and friends. His old horns today are where you knew they would be. His guests are still on them and stuff, and they should be. And then all his guests.